Well, that's an old expression that's not unique to the believing community. You can't take it with you. And everybody knows that to be true. And it just means you can't take anything with you. You know, it's that, like David was talking about, the child that comes naked into the world and goes out. And that's a direct reference in Scripture as well. One of the most graphic illustrations of this I ever experienced, I talk about it in one of my books, not sure which one, is when we were with our friends, Pat and Raquel Thurman. I mentioned them by name because there's several people here that know them. And when they were serving as missionaries in Egypt, and one day they said, okay, we want to show you, it's very hard to find, but we want to show you the grave of William Borden of Yale, who was a major missionary, and a lot of people follow. He died of spinal meningitis at age, 27 or something like that, but went to serve the people there and reach Muslims with the gospel and do all these different things, and then inspired all kinds of people to follow, almost like the 5 missionary martyrs, later, that inspired so many people to go out there. So William Borden, we go to his grave, and Pat Thurman is brushing off certain things and getting leaves out of the way, and there it is, William Borden. And then it says on the tombstone, apart from Christ, there is no explanation for such a life. Okay. So here it is, an abandoned, nobody's even taking care of this graveyard, at least they weren't when we were there. We get in their car and we go to the Egyptian National Museum in Cairo. Now, the Egyptian National Museum, the great feature of that is what? The treasures of King Tut. Well, so they explain to us, as we're seeing, tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of gold. And they say, the vast majority of it doesn't even fit up here. It's down in the basement. So like when you see the King Tut tour and they're bringing these things around, they're bringing a small fraction of the whole. Well, do you know why we have all those treasures? They were buried in the tomb. Do you know why they were buried in the tomb? So that the Pharaoh could take them into the afterlife. And they buried slaves in there too, so that he could have slaves serving him in the afterlife. Okay, so all that stuff that's on display, King Tut's gone, but guess what's still here? The stuff, the material thing. You can't take it with you. Well, it's true of every one of us. We don't have those kinds of treasures, but we have our own treasures. We accumulate stuff. And we live in this world of accumulation. Look at a garage sale at the things that were highly valued. These were going to change our lives somehow. A few years ago, sometimes a few months ago, and it's like we have no interest in them. And one of the things I talk about in my books is take your kids or your grandkids, I did it with both, on a field trip to the dump, and just go look at where it's all going to end up. Okay? This does not inspire you to put a higher priority on accumulating treasures on earth. But what Jesus says about the treasures on earth in Matthew chapter 6 there is, don't store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust corrupt and where thieves break in and steal. And he's saying, don't just not do this because it's wrong to do it. Don't do it because it's stupid to do it, because those treasures are not going to last. Then he turns around and he doesn't just say, store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moth and rust and dust are not going to, where thieves are not going to break in and steal. Don't not just store up for yourselves treasures in heaven because that's the right thing to do, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven because that's the smart thing to do, because they're going to last forever. So right now, today, I can look at my life and encourage you to look at your life and say, what have we got that either we don't use or don't need, or maybe even something we are getting some use out of, but it could be better used by liquidating that asset or directly giving it to someone else by investing in missions. What's going to last for eternity more than investment in feeding the hungry and reaching the lost with the gospel of Jesus Christ and refreshing the missionaries who have dedicated their lives to doing that and serving and equipping them. Really, seriously, what could be closer to the heart of God than those things? So what would I rather do? Get still another, and I'm just fill in the blank. Get one of these, or have treasure in heaven because people were reached with the gospel because I helped refresh and rejuvenate and revive fill back up the reservoir of a missionary who spent the rest of her life reaching yet more people for Christ. And when you look at that in eternity, I guarantee you, we'll look back and there will be no comparison. Should you do this or should you do that? Well, how about right now, we front load what will be our perspective once we get to be with Jesus, and now function with that eternal perspective here and now, so that we don't have to wait until we die to find out how we should have lived. We don't have to wait until we die to find out what we should have given. Give now. And your heart will be enriched. People will be reached with the gospel. People will be refreshed that need to be refreshed. We're getting the gospel to others. Nobody loses in that arrangement, and God is glorified.